I retired at 52, been retired almost 2 years now, and I want to make a video on my biggest regret about retiring early. And I've actually watched several videos on people who retire and then have regrets. And I was thinking, are those things I regret? And some of the ones that keep popping up are things like, I wish I started sooner, right? I wish I started saving sooner, planning for retirement sooner, all of those things. And an example I have is 2 or 3 years ago now, I interviewed a young man named Cody Davis, who's become a friend of mine over the years. And he was 20 at the time, right? Not old enough to buy a beer. And he had 30 rentals. And it was a couple of months before he did his interview on Bigger Pockets, which is one of their most viral videos ever to date. So I recommend checking out Cody Davis on Bigger Pockets. In my interview with him that I did when he was 20 and couldn't buy a beer yet and had 30 rentals, right? An accomplishment that many adults never actually achieve, even having one rental. He said, I wish I started sooner. I totally get it. Like, we all kind of feel that way. But as I retired at 52 and have been retired for about 2 years now, do I regret not starting sooner? Because I made it to 40 without ever really having $1,000 in the bank. Started investing as a single parent with 3 kids after getting laid off from law enforcement. Started teaching at a CDL school, making $17 an hour. Found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce, right? Pretty bad starting position, pretty late in life. Here's why I don't regret that. This hasn't happened to Cody, right? Cody is a stellar person. But there are a lot of people that I've seen in the financial independence retire early community who retire in their 20s or 30s, whether it's through stocks, start a business and sell it, or through real estate, is if they did it when they're 20 or 25 or maybe 30, they can regret retiring and become bored and feel like life has no purpose. But here's the superpower for those people out there who are unfortunate enough, like me or my friend Frank, who don't start until we're in our 40s or 50s. If you have decades of being a wage slave and having an alarm clock and a boss and the stress and expectations that comes from having to work or you don't eat or your kids don't eat, and you find the magic compilation of things in life that allow you to retire at 50 or 52, no amount of boredom could ever make us even consider for a second going back to work, right? I'd consider line dancing before I'd go back to work. There's so many things to do, but having that superpower of, this is how much life can suck if you have to work for year after year after year, and then pulling off financial freedom, I absolutely do not regret that I didn't start until I was 40. I would regret if I hadn't started yet, and I would start today. So then the second thing that came up when a lot of these things were, what do other retirees regret, whether it's at a regular time, social norm, or early, is, do you regret not retiring with enough money? And sorry, the CDL driver in me took over and I had to see what that was. Dirt haulers. And did I retire with enough money, right? So there are people, if you retire to be super frugal, yeah, I would regret not having enough money too. So there's a couple of numbers I want you to know to understand to make your retirement better, because I don't regret not retiring with enough money. The first thing is, if, if, there's the music. I did time this wrong every day. We have a financial freedom number, right? And this is talked about in the FIRE community often. And I talk about, you have the data to figure out what your financial freedom number is. And that is looking at the last 6 months of data instead of guessing at what the next 6 months of data is going to be. But what have you been spending to live the life that you are now? Some expenses are going to go up, like healthcare. Yes, you're going to be covering 100% of the premium, which you'll have your assets pay for now. That's how we retire early. But some expenses are going to go down. You're not going to be saving for retirement. You're not going to be paying earned income taxes. A lot of things are going to change, but you can estimate what your financial freedom number is. What are you spending to live your life? If you reach that and retire, you will regret retiring without enough money, because now you have a recession, a pandemic, a stock market crash, a serious health concern, something that can impact your finances and make you have to do something like consider going back to work for money. So I used a retirement number, not my financial freedom number. I used a multiplier of how many times my financial freedom number gave me the confidence to retire in an asset class that benefits from inflation. So I chose real estate because inflation makes you richer and richer. The more inflation there is, the more net worth you attain, the more rents go up, the more your principal and interest stays the same with that fixed rate debt that I love. Funny I could say that about real estate, but not in relationships. That's probably why I've had a few problems with those. So I needed about $4,000 a month to retire, to be financially free. I used a 4-time multiplier. When my cash flow passed $16,000 a month, I felt kind of silly going to work. And yes, it's been an interesting experiment trying to learn how to spend the now over $20,000 a month that comes in from my rents because I benefit from inflation. I don't regret retiring with the wrong amount of money because I didn't just reach financial freedom and retire. I reached my retirement number and retired in an asset that grows over time. Then the third thing that popped up, one of the biggest regrets that retirees have is not taking care of their health. This is not one that I regret. Yes, I still do free weights. I still do groundwork defensive tactics with law enforcement agencies. I still try to stay in shape. But I really like the phrase from Anthony Hopkins: life is short. Eat the cake. I eat the cake and the pie and the ice cream. And if you've ever gone to a local meetup with me, you actually know that's what I order when I go to a restaurant. Restaurant food is usually not as good as what you can find when you make it yourself, but dessert is usually better. I think pouring a lot of your attention into focusing on your health and not eating GMO and eating organic and remember, boys and girls, veganism and socialism are great unless you like food. I eat what I feel like. I eat a diversified amount of groups of food because I eat at different places, but I don't want to give up enjoying life now for years that are going to suck anyway. I don't teach people how to live longer. I teach people how to live more. So I don't regret not taking care of my health as good as I could because all of us could be in better physical shape. We're not all of the Michael Zubers of the world out there coming up on 50 and training for a marathon. So what are my two actual regrets? And yes, I'm trying to keep this video short because I know that if you want your questions answered during the live stream, I do my live streams every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and the live streams go on an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I answer all questions about reaching financial freedom, retiring early, investing in real estate. Real estate's not the only way. You can invest in stocks or grow a business. And if you invest in stocks, I recommend checking out channels like Joe Kuhn here on YouTube, Kuhn, who has a lot of content on how to reach financial freedom through stocks, uses the buckets method. It's not a method that I chose. If you're into real estate, I recommend checking out people like Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time, Millennial Mike, the Lumberjack Landlord, all of these channels with different strategies because mine might not be the one for you. But here are my two things that I actually regret. The first one, I just regret, and it's kind of a mental thing. The second one hits me right in the feels. The first thing I regret is, and this is a mistake that me and Zuber and Lumberjack Landlord made, and I'm hoping you don't, is I let work decide when I retired. Right? Financial freedom, hitting my 4 times my freedom number happened 4 years before I retired. I worked 4 more years because I loved my job. Michael Zuber went into work when I think it was 45 on a like February 2nd of that year or whatever, and went in at 8 o'clock, had a really bad back live now, and basically had a list of things he didn't want to do, and his boss gave him these things that he was going to do, which was all from that list. And 45 minutes later, he was driving home and had to call Olivia and said, "Hey, I don't work anymore." Then, yeah, I got a phone call from a telemarketer. Sorry, Jared. Lumberjack Landlord was working on a sale of his company, right? He wanted to make sure that the sale transition happened. He'd worked with these people for 10 plus years, and he had coworkers that he had hired, and he considered them as work family. So he stayed and he put in all this extra time to make sure that sale transaction happened correctly. And he did. The sale went through. And not one of those people in the 3 months since he's been retired has reached out. to even see how he's doing, let alone say thank you. I didn't do a Zuber. I did almost the opposite. I had a problem at work that was going on for months. A state agency was attacking the company I worked with, and I spent time educating myself and working with attorneys, and in a meeting that culminated in that agency flipping to being our supporter and a cheerleader instead of our antagonist. I retired that day right after that meeting because it was the peak of solving a huge problem at work. I wish I just realized I was ready to retire. My finances were in place. I had the life ready that I wanted to retire to instead of letting work decide when I retire. That's the mental one. And here's the one that hits me right in the feels. If you don't, you can't drink all day unless you start early. I regret retiring early at 52, having these 2 years, not having the skill set or the ability to articulate with clarity how freaking awesome it is, how amazing it is, how it is possible, how you can do it, how it isn't easy, but it is fairly simple. And it isn't going to happen overnight, it's going to happen over decades. And my proof of this, my lack of ability to even make videos that I'm not in the convincing business, I'm in the helping business. The people who are convinced that it's possible, I want to help you get there. I'm not going to convince people. And here's my proof. Yesterday, I have some really great friends. Mike, Millennial Mike, Justin Canberra, and my son, Cam, drove to my place. We went down to the ferry. We took the ferries out to Seattle, walked on the waterfront. We did some man on the street interviews, asked some questions about finances and the housing market. And it was a great day. I had a good time with my friends. We did a short live on the ferry on the way back. But my son, I've had 35 years to brainwash and manipulate and do whatever I could to make him think the way I do about money, which I didn't start doing until I was 40. And I never really have, right? I ran a martial arts studio, never got my son into it. He was into wrestling. My daughters were into gymnastics. I never tried to force my thoughts on my kids. But Cam sat down with Mike and Justin. And over the period of about the 1 hour ferry ride, because we took the slow ferry, not the fast ferry, I could see Cam's mind opening to the possibilities, to the ideas that Mike and Justin were sharing. And I sat back and I tried to let them run the conversation because who can listen to their parent, right? What does your parent know? Like when I trained my daughters how to drive, what did I do? I went to my friend Chesla and I said, hey, let's trade. I took her daughter, she took my daughter because nobody had to die so people could learn how to drive. I might be the outsider in your life that can share with you how to reach financial freedom, how to make work optional, how to have life be a better place. Because imagine what the world would be if more people had jobs they wanted instead of jobs they had to have. But I'm not good enough to help, talk to, or convince, or share my information with the people in my actual life. That's what I need some of you for. So those are my regrets, retiring at 52. I hope you have a day full of awesome. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.